Now, there's a very clear message that a lot of us received early on in life. Maybe it came from a parent or a teacher or a coach or just the general culture that we have grown up in. And it went something like this: toughen up, stop being so sensitive, man up, push through, don't cry, get on with it. And for me, it was pretty direct. I mean, my dad would tell me to put up, shut up, and get on with it, literally. And I did. I got very, very good at it. I pushed through school and I pushed through university and I pushed through relationships and career failures and family pain and personal loss. I kept moving and I kept achieving and I kept looking like I had it all together. And underneath all of it, there was a whole world of feeling that I learned to just lock the door on. There was grief, there was anger, there was fear that was never expressed or acknowledged, and a deep, deep, profound loneliness that I covered and drowned myself in with substances and busyness and achievement. And what no one really tells you when they hand you that message growing up is that the feelings don't go anywhere. They don't dissolve just because you ignore them or you push them away or you brush them under the rug. They're not disappearing because you are too busy or too strong to feel them. They just go deeper. They move into the body. They harden into holding patterns. They end up running your relationships and your decisions and your health and your sense of self from the background constantly until one day they just can't be ignored anymore. And so this episode is about that. Why so many of us, and certainly men especially, resist feeling our feelings, where that resistance comes from, and what it actually costs us biologically, psychologically, relationally, what the research says about what happens inside the body and the nervous system when emotion gets chronically suppressed. Also, what ancient wisdom traditions have known for thousands of years, but our modern culture keeps forgetting. And above anything else, what actually becomes possible when you finally stop running and you turn to face what is here. Now, by the end of this episode, I just want you to understand why feeling your feelings is not weakness. It's not self-indulgence or navel-gazing. It's actually the most important, most underrated work a human being can do. Quote me on that. And I want you to have a clear, practical way to begin gently without feeling like you need to rip yourself open or crack yourself open. If you feel called to, stay for that at the end. Now, as I said, the environment that I grew up in was in large part dominated by this message to put up, shut up, and get on with it, especially if I was struggling at school or struggling with friendships or social relationships at school. Feeling my feelings just wasn't really acknowledged as a normal or healthy thing to do. In fact, it was actually shamed, and it was role modeled to me by that as well. And so that instilled a physiological and psychological pattern of suppression from a very early age. I just put a lid on it. And I'm a sensitive guy, if you can't already tell by tuning into these conversations. So, being a sensitive kid in an environment that didn't honor and respect and acknowledge sensitivity was really, really difficult. I'm someone, or maybe the way that I've been put together by God, I feel things really intensely and I feel them really deeply. So, growing up in this environment led to me making the decision, whether it was conscious or not, to just close off, to shut away that part of me that's sensitive, which is a fantastic segue into shadow work, but I'll get too excited and we'll go off track. So we'll come around back to that in a later episode. But that's, if we're going on this little side quest though, that's effectively what shadow work explores, is you're meeting the parts of yourself that you have repressed or hid or locked away. Now, the part of myself that I suppressed, repressed, locked away, threw away the key was the sensitive one, the one that feels things deeply, the one that, that wants to express and wants to feel and wants to, play fully. So anyway, I learned that wasn't welcome. And so that formed this outer shell, this shield, or what comes to mind is the thick outer shell of our good friends, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's kind of what it felt like, like Leonardo's thick tortoise-like shell on my back that allowed me to push through and achieve and get great marks at school and win all kinds of, academic excellence awards and perform at a really high level in rowing, which is a super high performance sport that demanded so much commitment and energy and focus, always staying in motion. I was always trying to kick goals and never really sat long enough to feel what was underneath and what those unexpressed, unfelt emotions were. And so that followed me throughout university and my career and business and relationships. And so I was looked very capable from the outside, rising through the ranks in certain career roles, and then also building a business and winning a variety of different awards and building a team, over 100 amazing people, speaking on stages, flying around the world, going to India, pitching, meeting with investors. And it really, to me, I felt like I was really young to be in this position. I was like 23, 24. And so I looked, quite capable from the outside, but I kind of felt like I was living two separate lives. It's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation here, where externally I was doing quite quote unquote well, but internally, I was still going out to parties every week and numbing myself with alcohol and substances, just avoiding deep, meaningful conversations with myself by doing that and just writing myself off for days on end, and just dealing with a lot of pressure of building something big like a startup, managing a team and being the face for all of that, and just crumbling underneath. So there was some pretty, I guess, the pattern of numbing out caught up to me, which I've shared with you in earlier episodes, which involved my brush with the law, having to go to court, dealing with the police, and just a variety of slip-ups on my part, which guided me to therapy, because I was like, hey, maybe something's not right. Maybe let me rephrase that. Maybe something needs to be addressed here, because my reality is not really reflecting back to me what I prefer. I mean, I'm in a lot of pain. So that led to 8 years of psychology sessions or psychotherapy. Again, as I've spoken about, if you're new here, if you're not, I'll say it anyway. Therapy deepened my awareness. It gave me insight into where this pattern of avoidance and numbing out and escapism and emotional shutdown came from, right? It gave me a really deep, meaningful understanding of that. But it didn't break the resistance that I had to feeling my feelings. Yeah, sure, we were circling around some pretty deep pain and trauma in my sessions, but I didn't really get to the point where I could fully feel my feelings, where I could fully process emotions, where I could fully, discharge the trapped emotional energy in my nervous system. So I understood my feelings intellectually, but I couldn't actually, complete that stress response. Now, I kind of shared with you already, right? Like I felt like I was going kind of mad or crazy or just really frustrated and irritated because, I was really aware of my patterns and where they came from. And yet I continued to numb out and I continued to shut down and I continued to strive and push with work and in business and continued never to feel good enough. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Nothing was wrong with me. It's just that I was still finding creative ways to outrun my feelings with meditation and therapy and books and podcasts. Again, like they serve an important role and purpose in your journey of personal growth and healing and emotional well-being. However, they don't address the root cause. So it wasn't really until I knocked on the door of my body through somatic work and shadow work, and really for the first time let myself feel what had been locked away, and just opened up Pandora's box, but in a really beautiful way, because I was able to connect more deeply to myself, to regulate myself, to feel more calm, to feel more at peace, to feel more at ease, to feel less anxious in social situations, to feel more present with loved ones, to feel more calm and composed on stage or in meetings or whatever it was, because I had discharged this, dense emotional energy, the grief, the pain, the sadness, the fear, all of it. Now, why is it that we resist, right? Like the very thing that we're avoiding is the way through. The obstacle is the way, right? So why are we resisting what is meant to help us operate at our best? Like it's just so ironic. There's a lot of masculine conditioning out there, if you haven't already noticed. There's a lot of masculine conditioning that treats emotional expression as a weakness, This isn't ancient at all. This hasn't been around for thousands of years. This is actually relatively modern in the last, millennium or so, maybe even sooner. And it's doing enormous damage, right? Terence Real, who is the man behind I Don't Want to Talk About It, and he's done a lot of research into covert male depression and how men are socialized from early childhood to disconnect from their inner emotional world. Talks about how boys are given the message that vulnerability is unsafe and feelings are a liability. And then we have these scripts that make their way into pop culture, sport, workplace culture, social media. It's unsafe to feel your emotions because you might be deemed as, I don't know, too sentimental or too emotional or too unhinged for the workplace, or weak in a professional sporting environment, or like unhinged on social media, right? Like you've got a massive glorification of grinding, hustle and grind culture. You've got all of these Navy SEALs commandos coming through telling us to just, wake up earlier, to work longer, to outwork your competition, to push through, to not complain, to be the strong one. It's exhausting. And on top of that, we have the productivity industrial complex. We have this race to productivity where our entire society is conditioned to stay busy. Busyness is the ultimate form of avoidance. And if you're always doing something, you never have to be. And if you're not doing something, then how are you contributing? How are you maximizing shareholder value? And then, Brené Brown, one of my idols and role models, who's done a lot of work around vulnerability and shame, talks about how shame is the fear of disconnection, and it is the primary reason people suppress emotion. And men in particular are conditioned to experience vulnerability as deeply, deeply shameful rather than courageous. Even though we have this new narrative emerging and some beautiful organizations that are spearheading this, like Movember, the Man Cave, a couple that come to mind, even though we talk about it intellectually through content that experiencing vulnerability and being vulnerable is strong, is courageous, because there's like layers and layers and layers of conditioning in our subconscious mind from a very early age and from culture, it's baked into our nervous system that just seeing that message out there intellectually, it just goes into our conscious mind. It doesn't penetrate our conscious mind. It doesn't rewire our nervous system and basically teach our nervous system at an unconscious level that, hey, you are strong for feeling your emotions. We just look at it and we're like, oh, well, I get that. That makes sense. I'm all for it. But then why do we still resist feeling our feelings, right? Something to chew on. So there's this very subtle but powerful messaging that says emotions are an obstacle to performance rather than the actual foundation of it. The cruel irony of all of this and the paradox is that the same suppression that makes you look strong is actually what makes you way less effective, way less connected, way less creative, and way less present. I want to say that again because it's so powerful. And when I really grokked it, I was like, this is the path. Like, this is the path to liberation, to becoming the better version of myself, to healing. When I really understood this and I grokked it in my body, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm committed to for the rest of my life. The cruel irony is that the same suppression that makes you look strong is what is quietly making you way less effective, connected, creative, and present with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones. Now, when we're in this habit of suppression, and again, like I'm getting fired up because this is very close to my heart. So this is coming from a loving place and there's no judgment or shame here because I know what it's like to just carry around so much gunk, emotional gunk in my system and to push it down. And I want to just kind of peel back the curtain here to show you not just through my beliefs and perspectives, but also through science, as always, to make it practical and real and grounded, is that, when we get into this habit of suppression, when you don't feel your feelings, we want to understand that emotions aren't just psychological events alone. They are biochemical and they are physiological events. Now, Candace Pert, who wrote Molecules of Emotion, did a bunch of research into neuropeptides, and their receptors are found throughout the body. So emotions are not just in the brain. When they are not expressed and released, they continue circulating in the body's systems. That influences your immune function, your hormonal balance, your cardiovascular health, your digestion. We've spoken about the body keeps the score as well. from Bessel van der Kolk, suppressed emotion doesn't disappear. It actually gets encoded, baked into the body's sensory systems. Your fascia, that is the connective tissue, that sheet of connective tissue throughout your entire body, it gets baked into your musculature, into your organs. The body is keeping the score whether the mind is willing to acknowledge it or not. Stephen Porges talked about chronic emotional suppression keeps your autonomic nervous system locked in a survival state. When you suppress your emotion, when you resist feeling your feelings, you are in survival mode. It puts you in fight or flight or shutdown or freeze. And in these states, the capacity for genuine connection, to be present with your partner or your child gets diminished. Your capacity for clear thinking, for creativity on your work, on your art, on your music, your physical health, your vitality, all of that gets diminished. Peter Levine, again, incomplete emotional responses create frozen residue of energy in the body. It's like it calcifies, it becomes frozen. The body is literally waiting to complete what was started. I share all of that science and all that research to say that there is a compounding cost over time, if you haven't already gotten the picture of it, because what starts off as suppression turns into chronic tension, chronic dysregulation, chronic patterns of behavior driven by this unfelt emotion. So maybe you're not consciously aware of what's happening underneath the hood, but you're starting to see it. Maybe in the same relationship dynamic where when your partner brings up an issue, you fight, or you go into war mode, or you emotionally shut down and you withdraw, or you keep attracting the same partner in a different piece of clothing, or, you get to a specific level in your career or your business and then you self-sabotage and you reach and you hit that same ceiling on your success and on your joy and on your creativity and on your expansion. Why is that? It's because of what we're talking about here. Our feelings basically put this ceiling on top of us until we go in to meet them and to understand what they're trying to teach us. So we can talk about the science and the recent research, which is very recent and very modern, but ancient wisdom knew this first. And I love blending the two because let's just take a minute and appreciate if there's wisdom that's been around for 5, 10, 20,000 years and it's made it to the present day, man, maybe they knew what they were talking about. Maybe they're onto something here, right? Buddhism, or the Buddhists, talk about the concept of dukkha, which is suffering, and it arises not from the feeling itself, but from our resistance to the feeling. So the teaching around this is not to eliminate or get rid of or avoid the feeling, but to stop clinging to pleasant feelings and stop pushing away unpleasant ones. The middle path, which is spoken about a lot in Buddhism, is full presence with what is arising, being fully present and with whatever is coming up in your awareness in that point in time. Is it grief? Let's really feel it fully. Is it joy? Let's really feel it fully. Is it sensuality? Let's really feel it fully. Is it sadness? Let's really feel it fully. Let's just be with reality and not try and resist it. In Hinduism, they talk about different energy centers. The second one is associated with emotion. You've got creativity and flow. Now, when that's blocked through emotional suppression, that starts to show up as creative stagnation, which for me looked like spending about, 1-2 years feeling creatively stifled and constipated after having to, pivot from my last business and going through an emotional breakdown off the back of family illness and a relationship ending and just holding on to so much emotion, which manifested as me feeling completely stuck and blocked around what I am doing with my life completely. I felt emotionally numb, and it also manifested physically as tension in my hips and my lower abdomen, which is kind of the seat of emotional suppression according to Hinduism at least. And so that created a lot of pain. In Kabbalah, they talk about the concept of vessels. So this is a teaching that we're designed to hold and process experience, not to actually store it indefinitely. And so the emotion that isn't processed turns into trapped energy, and that distorts the vessel or the nervous system, if we want to use modern scientific lingo. And what is actually often misread or misunderstood about Stoics and Stoicism is that the Stoics endorsed emotional suppression. Now, my belief is that the Stoics didn't advocate for numbness. In fact, Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively in Meditations about the importance of honest self-examination. So the goal was not to actually get rid of his emotion, but to not be unconsciously controlled by it, which actually requires feeling it fully first. So the common thread across all of these ancient wisdom traditions is that suppression is not strength. It's actually a form of avoidance. And the path to genuine freedom or liberation runs through the feeling, not around it. The obstacle is the way. So feeling your feelings is actually the most important work you can do in your life. And here is why. When you feel an emotion fully, it actually completes that response. It discharges from your nervous system. The energy moves through your system and releases. This is, referring to Peter Levine's model of the complete stress response. And when it completes, the nervous system, your nervous system, gets the signal that the threat has passed, right? That perceived threat or perceived danger has gone, or the real threat or the real danger has gone. And so the body can now return to its natural baseline of safety, coherence, and vitality. Your body is always trying to heal itself, truly. Your body has a natural capacity to return to safety, coherence, vitality, calm. But we just keep on getting in the way with alcohol and substances and avoidance and suppression and work and achievement and control and resistance. We get in the way of that, right? But if we allow that stress response to complete itself, the body can return back to its natural baseline. And what happens on the other side of that? Well, you start thinking clearly. You have genuine connection with others, genuine heartfelt connection with the people that you love and who love you. You have access to creativity and intuition because your prefrontal cortex is back online. You feel at ease physically. You have the capacity to make decisions from alignment and truth and trust instead of fear. Now, what kind of impact do you think that would have for you in your business when meeting with potential clients or stakeholders or investors? What kind of impact do you think that might have on your relationships and your ability to deepen the connection with your romantic partner or with your children or with your parents? This level of coherence that the nervous system and the heart is always seeking to return back to is very real, and it is measurable. In fact, the Heart Math Institute has spent decades researching cardiac coherence, which basically talks about emotional regulation and positive emotional states. They are directly linked to heart rate variability and your nervous system coherence. So when you process emotion, the body becomes literally more intelligent, more resilient, and more capable. Your relationships change. When you're no longer managing suppressed emotion, when you're not trying to, swallow down anger or push down fear or sadness or grief or hurt, when you're no longer trying to manage this suppressed emotion in the background, you can actually be present with the people around you. All of the nervous system's resources that were previously going to containing this emotion can be freed up to allow you to connect on a really deep level with the people that you care about. You also stop reacting from old wounds and you start responding from the present moment, which means you're able to actually attract a really healthy, secure love into your life, as opposed to one that continually reinforces your old wounds. So again, the paradox here is that the thing that you have been most afraid to feel is the thing, when finally felt, produces the greatest sense of freedom and relief and liberation. Feeling your feelings is what genuine strength is actually built on. But why is it so uncomfortable? Why is it so uncomfortable? And I get it. It's so messy and it's so uncomfortable and it's raw and it's painful, and I get it. And I'm going through that right now, and it can, it just takes a toll. It can kind of send you sideways. After a really big emotional release, can take a toll on your energy, on your sleep, on your diet, on your nutrition, on your social life. I get it. It's so messy. It's so uncomfortable. It's so real, right? When you begin to feel something that has been suppressed, the body actually registers it as a threat, because that is what it learned to do from a very early age. That's what I learned to do or my nervous system learned to do from a very early age when expressing my sensitive side was shut down and shamed. So the nervous system was conditioned to treat emotional expression as unsafe. So it will register it as a threat at first. Now, Dan Siegel talks about the window of tolerance, which basically means that healing happens in a zone between too much activation and too much numbing. So the goal is not to flood the system all at once, but to gently expand the capacity to feel emotion without being overwhelmed by it. Now, there is a specific fear that many men carry, and certainly one that I've carried for a very, very long time. If I start feeling this, I won't be able to stop. I'll fall apart and I'll lose control, right? I get it. It's valid. It's a valid fear, and it's more common than you think. Now, the corollary or the truth of that is that emotions aren't bottomless. It's not like an infinite stress response, right? They complete when they are fully felt. When you fully discharge that emotional energy from your system, the cycle completes itself. So the falling apart is almost always followed by a profound sense of clarity and relief. Like, phew, thank God. I feel so much better now. Now, the other fear is if I feel this, it means something terrible about me or about what happened, right? Now, the truth is that feeling an emotion is not the same as endorsing it or becoming it fully or being defined by it. You can still feel anger without being an angry person. In fact, I highly encourage you to express anger because in my work, I see that as being one of the most commonly suppressed emotions. And unfortunately, when that gets suppressed, it leaks out sideways and create so much unnecessary harm, not only to yourself, but also to the people around you. You can feel grief without being broken, right? Feeling is just the honest acknowledgement of what is true for you in that moment. So we've spoken a little bit about what this process of feeling your feelings can offer you, but how do we actually do it? Right, so I want to offer you a practical guide to getting started. You don't need somatic practitioner or a coach or a retreat or years of therapy to get started. You can actually just start now with what you already have. Step one is just slow down enough to notice. Most of our avoidance is based in velocity. We just keep moving so we don't have to feel. So the first practice is simply to pause. We hear it a lot, right, in the wellness space, just slow down. There's a reason for it. It's because we've been so conditioned to speed up, and then the cycle of suppression continues. So simply pause, sit down, close your eyes, slow the breath down, and just ask, what's here right now? Step two is locate it in the body. Emotions are not just a narrative that you experience in your mind. They have a physical location and a physical texture. So check in with yourself. Where in my body is there tightness or heaviness or heat or a knot? And just move your awareness to that location and stay with it rather than immediately trying to fix it or explain it or make sense of it. Just stay with that sensation. Step three, give it a name. Right? Give it a name without going into story mode. Instead of I'm angry because he or she said that to me, just try I notice that there is anger here in my body. Now, what happens when you do that is like by naming the emotion without that accompanying narrative, it can help to reduce its intensity. Dan Siegel spoke about this. Name it to tame it. His research showed that labeling an emotion actually activates your prefrontal cortex. It reduces your amygdala activation, which is your threat detection center, which is your internal alarm system. So the simple act of naming what you feel genuinely calms the nervous system down. Step four, breathe through it. Now, there's a very big reason why breathwork has taken the world by storm. And there's so much research now that's emerging about the amazing benefits that it can bring to you physiologically, psychologically, physically. Breath is your direct access to your nervous system. So even just with a slow exhale, right? If we breathe in for 4 seconds through the nose and slowly out through the mouth for 8 seconds, that activates the parasympathetic nervous system and it sends a signal of safety to the body. And so as your sensation arises, breathe in it, breathe toward it rather than away from it. So it's not the same as drowning in it. It's just expanding your capacity to be present with it. Step 5, just allow what's happening without any agenda. You don't need to understand why you feel what you feel. You don't need to solve it or fix it or make it go away. You just need to let it be there, witnessed and acknowledged and breathed through. And often that's enough for it to begin to shift. Now, Dick Schwartz or Richard Schwartz talks about this in internal family systems. When you turn towards a feeling or a part of yourself with curiosity rather than judgment, its intensity actually decreases. So you're not being attacked by your own emotions. You're actually being visited by a part of yourself, a younger part of yourself that has just been waiting to be heard. So acknowledging it with curiosity, with compassion, with love, welcoming it with warmth is going to do far more benefit to you than judging it. Step 6, get support if you need it, right? This is not a do-it-yourself project. This work does not need to be done alone. In fact, I would assert that it's best done in conjunction with others because the nervous system heals in relationship. We are co-regulating creatures. So find a practitioner, find a trusted friend, a men's group, a women's group, a coach, someone who you trust, who can actually hold space for this process, because doing so dramatically accelerates your path through it. So as we bring this in for a landing, you were not born numb at all. You were actually born feeling everything, right? Us as babies, we are the most emotionally regulated creatures. Just look at kids. They have the capacity to feel and to express everything. They don't stifle and suppress anything, but they get taught to do that. And so the sensitivity, if you're anything like me, that you were taught to suppress was never a weakness. It was actually your most honest and intelligent response to the world. The feelings that you've been avoiding are parts of you that have been waiting the longest to come home. And so the shell, the shield, the armor that has formed to protect you, to allow you to achieve and to strive and to build and to succeed, it's served its purpose, but you don't need it in the same way anymore. I want you to know that feeling your feelings is not you falling apart or losing control. You're actually coming back home to yourself. You're actually coming back together. You're actually becoming more whole again, or remembering your inherent wholeness. So if this landed for you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, especially the men in your life who might still be operating behind the shell, who might still be suppressing. And if this spoke to you, if this helped you, or if it served you in some way, please leave a rating on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube, wherever you're listening, a thumbs up, a review, leave a comment. It might seem like a small, trivial thing, but it actually helps us reach more people who might need to hear this message. We spoke a lot about different research and citations and references. And so anyway, I'll include all of that in the show notes as well, so you can go deeper, you can do your own research. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.